It's very easy to see how natural selection can weed out harmful mutations and maintain a population at a relatively high fitness. It's also pretty easy to grasp how natural selection would favor a beneficial new mutation and increase it in frequency until it finally takes over a population. And of course, that's going to change the phenotype of that population a little bit. However, these kinds of changes don't strike us as being really innovative. What's much more difficult to grasp is the idea that small random mutations and natural selection can accumulate to generate something that really strikes us as new. This is where a lot of people get hung up. They get hung up on the idea that natural selection can add random changes together to, to generate something that's meaningfully new and different. The fact that our brains function by putting things into categories can be a real stumbling block here. When a new mutant has a slightly different phenotype than the rest of the population, we tend to think, that's not really a new kind of organism. That's just a slight variation on the category we already know. It's just been tweaked a little bit. It's not intuitive to us that if you tweak an organism a little bit, and then you tweak it again, and then you tweak it again, you keep tweaking it each time, that eventually it starts looking like something profoundly different, like a completely new category. So what I'd like to do is show you some evolution where little changes do add up to something interesting and different. Some programmers took a physics engine and generated this world here. It's just this square, flat arena hanging in space. But in this artificial universe, there's simulated gravity, there's simulated friction, there's momentum. All the physics principles are there that determine how objects move around in space. And you can build organisms in this world. Here's an organism that someone designed, someone put it together deliberately to look like a quadruped, a four-legged animal. In this case, it kind of looks like a lizard. Fundamentally, all the organisms in this world are made up of sticks. They're these cylindrical sections that are attached to one another. That's what makes up the body and legs of this lizard. You can put muscles on the sticks to move the muscles or to move the sticks around, and you can connect the muscles to nerves that tell the muscles when to contract. You can even put sensors on this organism that tell it when its leg is touching the ground or which direction is up or so forth. There is a line of code that specifies all this. The structure of the sticks, where the muscles are, where the nerves and sensors are, everything. If you've written the code correctly for your organism and you set it running, it will actually start to walk around. But there's another way that you can approach all of this. What you can do is you can start with some code that specifies any kind of animal in this artificial world, and you let the code evolve. You tell the program, keep the animals that are capable of moving fastest on a flat surface. The program takes the code you started with and it makes a random change to that code. Then it simulates the organism that code would make. And it sees, how quickly does this thing move around? How far does it travel in a certain period of time? Maybe that random change makes the organism better at moving around. That is, the new mutant has a higher speed. If so, the program keeps that new piece of code and starts making random changes to that one. So here's what I did, just as a demonstration. I started with the simplest possible organism in this universe, a single stick, no muscles, no nerves. And I let this stick evolve with the program keeping the fastest versions of this organism, the fastest creatures that random mutation would come up with. Every so often I stopped the program to save the fastest critter at the moment so I could show them to you now. Every simulation starts like this. Time is frozen, with the new organism kind of hovering in the middle of the arena. When you press go, the program starts simulating how this organism would behave. And clearly this stick isn't very good at moving around. Its speed is 0. Oh, okay, we'll let the program try some random mutations. Here come the new variations. This program is able to test them, to simulate them all very rapidly when you have the parameters set correctly. And as you can see, it's adding things to this code. It's adding a lot of features. Well, let's see how this one behaves. Not a lot better. Not making much progress here. Let's go away for a few minutes and then come back, though. And oh, okay, this is new. A mutation accidentally added a muscle to this joint. Let's see what this one does. Well, it doesn't do much. But compared to that first stick, which didn't move at all, this organism's a speed demon. Remember what the Grants discovered with the finches on the Galapagos Islands. Even very small differences can matter in terms of survival in the wild. And this organism that you're seeing here doesn't have to be all that fast. It just needs to be faster than whatever came before it. A few generations later, oh, this one moves farther, but then it cramps up into a permanent knot. So it's an improvement, but it's still not all that impressive. We come back a little later, and random changes tweak the nervous system so that it no longer cramps up. It moves constantly, keeps moving, very slowly and very inefficiently, but it does keep moving. In the next version, random changes have altered how the muscles flex the body. More importantly, the movements of the muscles are now coordinated through the nervous system, so that every time this end on the right comes down, the animal uses that motion to throw the center of its body forward. This is not an efficient walker, but it's actually moving in a complex and coordinated way. Random mutations and selection for a faster moving phenotype have generated a working machine. Now this, I don't remember exactly how long this process took. It was maybe half an hour or an hour. It's not one of the more impressive end products. I did this a bunch of times. I just started with a really simple stick and let the simulations run in the background while I did something else. And here's the end product of another one of these runs. This one's a lot faster. These end organisms can evolve to look like something other than worms, by the way. Here's a particularly interesting walker. Online, you can find even more of these. You can find organisms that people designed for speed, and you can find these pieces of code that people came up with when they let these organisms evolve for speed. Now, here are a few of the ones that have evolved. Over and over again, what you see is that mutation and natural selection have hit on ways of moving an object around. Some of them are simple, some of them are complicated, but all of the successful ones in the end contain a bunch of coordinated pieces working to carry out a function. This world is fake. The organisms are fake, but the evolution is real. There's no cheat sheet hidden in this program that guides organisms towards some preset goal. There's no cheat sheet that explains to them, this is how you move an organism around in space according to the laws of physics. What's happening is that the program is just posing a problem. How do you move around rapidly on land? Mutation wanders around until it stumbles on the first hints of a solution. Natural selection then keeps those hints, and mutation wanders around until it comes up with a better way of making those hints move an organism around. Because selection keeps the successes of the past, every time what mutation is doing is it's searching in the neighborhood of a better starting point, a faster and faster organism. The first crude attempt at a solution gets refined and adjusted into a coordinated system of different parts. So this simulation, although it is a simulation, is a lot like real evolution of real organisms. You have a code, which is something like a genome. You're making small, discrete changes to that genome. And over time, those add up to really change the organism that you're looking at. It becomes very well suited to the function that helps it survive. In this case, the function that decides whether something survives is moving fast. And it looks like a completely new and different category of object. One interesting thing to note is that none of these organisms that evolve look like what you would expect them to look like. And that's true of evolution in the real world as well, as we're going to see. Evolution is always coming up with surprises. It comes up with ways of getting things done that a human engineer never would have thought of. And some of them are very beautiful and very clever.